Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode or installment of our Adult Education Virtual Job Club. Tonight, we're going to talk about winning that job interview. We've spent a lot of time on how to prepare, how to answer questions, how to write your resume, how to look for a job, but we haven't spent as much time on actually the interview itself. So we're going to watch a video. We're going to talk to one of our members who had recent interviews, just so that we focus on what's the best way to handle yourself within an interview. So I'm going to get started right away and hopefully share my screen. We know that I have had issues with this in the past. Okay, are you seeing the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, I am going to try to see if I can get it to, I guess I can't. All right. So here is our introductory slide. We're going to talk about preparing for common questions as well as soft and hard skills. But what we're going to start with first is an interview experience with one of our members, Luciana Leite. And in a minute, I'm going to stop and, excuse me, stop sharing the screen so that we can talk about, she's had 2 interviews just this week. And both of them she got very positive feedback on. So we want to hear what it is she's doing because she's sure doing something right. So I'm going to stop my share. And here we are. And Luciana, if you can unmute yourself. Thank you again for being willing to tell us about a job interview. I always think it's so beneficial when somebody who's just been through it can explain what happened. So for the first thing I wanted to ask you was, how did you apply for the job and how did you find it?
Hi, thank you for helping me in this all this time, almost 1 year.
Oh, it's
Uh,
my pleasure.
I applied through the site Indeed.
Indeed. Okay.
Yes.
And was the application right within Indeed or so that the whole thing was done online?
Yes, all things online.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And then, so you applied for the job and then somebody called you to set up an interview, or did they email you? How did they contact you?
They send me email. Yes, the
Okay.
first one send me email. They ask what time can I call for you for interview? What
Okay.
time better for you? They ask. And another company, she tested me in my cell phone. Yeah, she tested message. She says, "What time can I call for you for the interview?"
Okay. And was it the same day or was it ahead of time?
No, had a time.
Yeah.
Yes, I
So
told
isn't
it.
that good news for everyone that they don't
No,
just
no.
call you and say, how about in an hour? That gives you time to prepare.
Yes,
So that's really good news. Okay, so the interviews you did you say both were cell phone?
yes, both on phone. Yes.
Okay. So tell me about like how it went. Did they talk first about the company or did they start asking you questions first?
The first one, they asked me, tell me about yourself.
Okay.
Yes, they asked me questions. The first one. And
Okay.
the interview is around about 20 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it's around 20 minutes.
And was it only one person that you talked to, or was it multiple?
Yes, one person.
Okay.
Mm.
Um,
But the second, they ask all about the job descriptions, and so after they ask about me.
oh, okay. All right.
Yes.
So which one did you like better? Did you have a preference?
The first one,
Okay.
yes. For they ask me for the question first, Yes.
Okay. And did they spend very much time talking about the job and what you would be doing?
Yes, they spend, and they explained all situation, all the true. I don't have a lot of question for asking for dance because
Okay.
they explained very well.
Okay, got it. Um, so you already said that they asked you about the tell me about yourself. Are there any other questions that you remember that we've kind of talked about in Job Club? Like, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Did they ask either of those?
No, they don't ask.
Okay.
They didn't ask. Yes,
Um,
they ask one, but I don't think so. We have this in job. We studies. They ask why you study for this career. Why
oh,
you
okay.
decided for studying this career. Yes.
And that can really apply to a lot of people. You know, it's funny because you don't think that anybody's going to ask you why you want to do that. They may
Yes.
ask you why that company, their company. And when
Yes.
they ask you that question, they're doing it to see if you know anything about the company, or is this just the first, one of 100 jobs that you've seen and you're just hoping to get one. So, that's kind of what they're fishing for when they ask that question. But that's interesting that they asked you about the career choice in general. That's that's surprising. How did you handle that?
I handle well because I told my dad he's working engineer electric, so I help him, and so I like, but I decided no electric. I decided for civil engineer.
That's awesome.
Yes,
Thank heavens you were ready for that one. I'm going to add
yes,
that to my list of questions that we talk about, because that, it is very telling for when you're looking for a job that is a specific career. Like civil
mm,
engineering is very specific. You can work on various things, but that's a very specific career.
mm,
Education is a very specific career. One of the questions that I wouldn't be surprised if somebody is interviewing in education, lots of times they'll ask you what age group you prefer. And once you say that, or if you say that, the best follow-up is, what is it about that age group that you like? So, whenever it's not only do you have to be prepared with your answer, but you need to be able to explain why you answered the way you did or why you feel the way you did. So thinking about all this stuff in general is a really important thing. Those are all the questions that I have for you right now, unless there is, oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. So when you end the phone interview, do they give you any feedback or tell you what the next step is?
yes. The first interview I did, they asked, "Oh, you are ready for a test now because we passed your interview, so you have a test." So they just ask when you can come in the company for do the test.
Okay,
Yes. So, but
wonderful.
they are so flexible. So, what time you prefer? Say both
Okay.
are flexible for the time for go there or make interview.
So you think the next step is you take this test and then you'll hear from them afterwards about whatever the results are?
Yes.
Okay. What about the second company? Did they give you any feedback in terms of what the next steps might be?
The second they say they will send my resume for the company because they are recruiter.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's exciting.
Yes.
Awesome. So whatever you're putting in your resume is matching these job descriptions. So good job.
Thank you,
Good job.
because you help me a lot too.
Well, but you have to have the things to put in there, and you do. So that's wonderful. Okay, unless there are any questions for Luciana, I thank you very much for taking time out. I really, really appreciate that you stopped in today to tell us about two actual job interviews, phone interviews. Remember that now we're still in COVID, so phone interviews are going to be very common. Zoom interviews are going to be very common. You might, in a phone interview, more than likely, you're only going to talk to one person. But once they do Zoom interviews, it could be a group. So like the way we're talking here, and the way I ask questions in a group interview, however many people from the company. The last interview that I had, there were 4 people from the school who were in the room, and they each took a turn asking the question. And then they're all writing their notes down, which is a little unnerving, but you know, it's getting used to talking to different people. So that can happen in a Zoom interview too. And the other thing is they could schedule multiple Zoom interviews with you so that as soon as you're finished with one, somebody else comes on. So that's another thing. In person, hopefully now as things are opening up, there's a lot of question about, are we still going to wear masks? Are we not going to wear masks? I think companies are going to be pretty conservative, so I would expect that any job interview approach it the same way you approach going to Wavansi is, we're taking all those safety measures. We're wearing masks, we're doing all the pre-check of all the temperature and any signs of illness, as well as lots and lots of hand washing. So assume that will be the case when if you go to an in-person interview. So like that test appointment that you have, don't be surprised. I'm sure you're going to have to wear a mask. They may sanitize the area before you sit down, like right in front of you, but they're really going to great lengths now to try to keep everybody safe. So expect that. If there isn't anything else, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to show you a video of a webinar that I attended. The webinar was based, I think the title of it is, how is it? Preparing for job interviews, something like that. And it was a sequence of webinars where the first one was doing your resume and how to do an application. And then this was the follow-up, or the second one. So I'm going to share my screen and see if I can't get to that video. Okay, are you seeing the video?
Yes, interviewing.
Interviewing, perfect. All right, I'm going to start it here. I may have to skip ahead. It's about 10 minutes of the video that we're going to watch. So, but I think it's really, really valuable. So here we go.
Interviewing comes in many forms. One of the things that I see about interviews right now, because of COVID, is that before they oftentimes they were in person. You went into a company, but now a lot of employers are moving or have moved to doing a video interview just like this on Zoom or some other platform. Sometimes you end up having an interview that's a panel.
Oh, sorry.
So there are more than one people either in the office or on the call. Sometimes it's in person, but sometimes it's actually just by telephone. They'll do telephone interviews. So the thing that I just want to point out here is when you are doing a video a panel, an in-person interview, all of the things that we're going to talk about from here forward are important, but also you still want to pay attention to how you're dressed, how you look, what's in the background, and also background noise, because all of those things will have influence on what the person thinks. So our techniques will apply to everything. So one of the most important tools that you'll need to prepare for a job interview, it's what we talked about yesterday as well, and that is an actual job description. So if you applied and you got the interview, that means that your resume and your cover letter worked. And now it's time to prepare for that next step, that like moment of truth. Employers in their ads pretty much tell you what they're looking for, just like we looked at yesterday in the resume and cover letter session. The same thing holds true in the interview session. By carefully reading the ad, you can pretty closely predict what the employer is going to ask you about, and more importantly, what kind of things that you need to say. So I want to show you several examples of a person applying for this job. And what I want you to keep in mind as we do that is what this employer is looking for. So very quickly, the employer is looking for somebody who meets deadlines, somebody who has a strong customer focus, is going to be a positive addition to working as a team member, want somebody who's efficient and has good time management, is professional, and just has a positive can-do attitude. So those are some of the things that we want to make sure that we emphasize. So let's meet Cole. And we're going to hear his interview.
Question 1. Tell me about yourself. Oh, God. There's really not much to say about myself. I guess I'm a middle child, so that's always been something I've had to deal with growing up. I'm from Wisconsin. In case you didn't know, that's the cheese capital of the United States. And I guess a little fun fact about me is I hate cheese.
So let's go back. I'm sorry, that skip forward. I need to go back. I'll stop it so that you don't have to hear it again. But when we look at this, let's think, what did the ad say? The ad said that they wanted somebody with landscaping experience, although it wasn't really required, but if you had experience, that's going to be helpful. Can operate equipment safely and demonstrates professionalism. So in this interview, like, think to yourself, how did Cole do? If you were interviewing Cole, at the end of that answer, would you say, wow, like, he's going to bring a lot to the organization? So, I look at it and I think, yeah, he didn't meet the mark, because did the employer say, I'm really looking for someone who maybe grew up in Wisconsin? Or did the employer say, I'm really interested in hiring somebody who is a middle child because I relate to that? Or, I personally don't like cheese, and what I want to do is I want to hire somebody who also doesn't like cheese. No. And yet that is what Cole spent the few minutes of this interview talking about, which is not going to move his position forward. And I just look at it and I think, did he really come off as motivated? And I personally did not hear that. So I didn't hear motivation. So let's look at Cole. What happened with Cole is that then we worked together to construct a better answer. And let me show you how that went.
Well, my name is Cole Belcher, and for the past few years, I've been a student at Eureka College. Growing up, I worked on a family farm where I had the opportunity to work with a wide variety of different equipment and even help my family with irrigation designs. While I'm not in class, I spend most of my free time working at the local park district's golf course, where I'm a part of the groundskeeping department. I also have been able to head up some of the landscaping projects. In fact, if you drive by Parkview Golf Course now, you'll see the new sign display with greenery surrounding it, and that's my most recent project.
Is this the type of information that you're looking for?
Well,
is what he said. But I want you to think about that answer and notice in that answer, like there were very specific things that I think that Cole did better in this particular answer. One, remember they said in the ad that landscaping experience was helpful, but it wasn't required. So what did Cole do? He talked about having worked on his family farm. Now, that was probably not a paid thing. He was probably forced to do it by his dad. Actually, I know that to be the case. But now he works at a park and he is doing some landscaping. Can he operate equipment safely? He mentions that and I think now, notice he's dressing differently. He's combed his hair back so that he didn't cut it, but he looks a lot more professional. I think that when an employer says, tell me about yourself, you want to tell them something about yourself that has to do with this particular job. So now here's another question that almost universally employers ask. And so let's see how Cole does on this one.
Question 6. What are your weaknesses? I'd have to say that my weaknesses would probably be, I hate getting up in the morning sometimes. Thank God for coffee. Oh my God. Sometimes I'll take like a 5-hour energy that's helped me get through quite a few midterms, finals, and some long work days. But question 6.
Oh.
What are your weaknesses?
I'm gonna scroll ahead.
Quite a few midterms, finals, and some long work days. But you just got to do what you can to stay awake sometimes, and I do that so I can come in and I can work effectively. There was even this one time where back in school I was having a hard time with some of my classes. I was having to stay up super late, so I went on Amazon and I bought these energy pills, and that was just a rough week, but it really helped out. So like I said, I'll do what I can to stay awake so I can come in and work, just to be the best worker that I can be, and whatever costs.
So I want you to contrast his answer with what the employer is looking for. The employer said that he's looking for somebody who's punctual and hardworking. And what Cole is saying is, I can't get up in the morning. It's so hard. And that in order to get up and get going, he has to have coffee, he has to have energy drinks, he's bought pills that are some kind of energy pills. That is not the kind of thing that the employer wants to hear. So, when I look at what's he need to work on for his upcoming interview, he needs a much better answer. And he needs to talk about weaknesses. I'm going to show you here. Let me show you the next slide. What is your biggest weakness? This question is oftentimes asked, so it's pretty standard. And I recently did some mock interviews with some first-time job seekers. It was about a year ago because it was before COVID. And I do this every year. It's volunteer work that I do. But COVID didn't let us do it in 2020. So anyway, I always ask this particular question. what is your biggest weakness? And here are some of the answers that I get from some first-time job seekers. I'm lazy. I've heard I'm not very motivated, and I've heard I procrastinate a lot. I don't like working with people. I just like being left alone. And last, like, I don't have any weaknesses. So all of those answers need work. They're actually, I mean, they're in a sense, they're far too honest, but I'm not suggesting to you or to anybody that you lie, but certainly there's another way of looking at this. So, because what employer is looking for an unmotivated, lazy person who hates people and likes to procrastinate? Pretty sure those are not requirements of any job. So, what I saw that the interviewees did not seem to understand was the employer's perspective. They weren't sitting in the employer's seat hearing what their answers would sound like to an employer. So, and then another mistake is just focusing on a weakness that turns out is actually a requirement of the job. So, as an example, a weakness what should never be something that's a requirement on the job. So that if you're applying for a customer service job, you don't want to say that your weakness is that you're shy, or that sometimes you can't control your temper, or maybe it's not really liking people, it's liking to be alone. If you're applying for a job that's in the medical profession, then you definitely do not want to say that your weakness is punctuality, lack of patience, liking to work fast and, cut corners and not be detail oriented. So the weakness that you want to give should always be something that is not job related. Let's see how Cole does it this time.
I would say that my biggest weakness is that I can be stubborn. Now, I don't mean that I'm hard-headed and unwilling to work with others, but instead that I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to the things that I do. There's been a couple of times at my current job where I've had to be told to go home by my supervisors because I just kept staying late trying to complete some of the work that I hadn't been able to complete throughout the day. I believe that if you're going to work on something, you need to put your best effort into it. Otherwise, you shouldn't do it at all.
So notice this time, I think Cole put together a much better answer. And he starts off with, like, I'm a little hard-headed, but his hard-headedness is because he wants to do such a good job that sometimes, and he wants to finish projects, that sometimes he has to be told to go home. That's a good weakness. And that's a weakness that really isn't a weakness. It's more like a strength, but he gets away with it. So another common, so these are 3 common questions that you're oftentimes asked. Let's look at employers are going to ask, or oftentimes are going to ask, why are you interested in working here? Why are you interested in this position? Why are you interested in this field? So let's see how Cole does on this.
Question 2. Why are you interested in this position? So to be honest, I started looking around for jobs. Like I said, I'll be graduating soon here, and I saw your job being advertised on one of the job sites I look at, and it was the first one that I saw. Looked interesting to me. And it just seems like it'd be a really...
Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. I need to go back to that. Something's wrong. Okay. Here it is. I'll bring it forward.
Interesting to me. And it just seems like it'd be a really fun experience. So I figured, hey, might as well apply.
So did that sound like he has a positive can-do attitude, that he's hardworking, he's motivated? and he's willing to learn. It sounds like he's just looking for ads and saw this and thought, oh, let's give it a try. So that's not a very well formulated answer. So with work and sitting down and thinking about what's the ad say, and so what do I want to make sure I get across? Let's see how he did on his second run. Yep.
This beachfront Verbo is about to become part of an unforgettable vacation memory. The moment when so much anticipation.
Okay, I just need to fast forward here a little bit. Hopefully I'm going to get us to the right spot. I just want you to hear the answer.
Right here. Yep. This is the one we were on. Okay.
Technology is great, but sometimes it can cause unforeseen issues.
Okay. Oh, we saw that one. So this is the one that I was looking for. Okay.
Well, working part-time on the groundskeeping group has been very rewarding. Being part of that team and seeing projects finished and learning about different landscaping designs has been a great experience. During my time working there, I had found a passion for landscaping work, and that passion is what inspired me to seek a career in professional landscaping. And after doing some research to find the companies that have been around a while, I was happy to come across your company and see that it had listed an opening. I believe that if I want to make the most out of my education and experience, your company offers the best opportunity.
So when you compare and you contrast what is first,
I'm going to stop this here, stop sharing this, and go back to our PowerPoint, I hope. So we have already talked to Luciana, and here was that video on our next slide. Here is the link down here at the bottom of the slide. Make sure you watch this video. It's about an hour long, but there's so much good material in it. And here's one of the slides next that that she was talking about, that when you're thinking about how you're going to answer questions in your interview, you have to look at the job description and get tips or hints on what they're looking for and what kind of person they're looking for to fill the job. So you want to know, because any answer that you give should be addressing one of the three things that are shown here. You want to let them know that you do have the skills that they're going to list that are required for the position. You're going to show in your answers either what your work ethic is, what kind of work you like to do, what kind of environment you thrive in, but you also want to show with your personality how you're going to fit into that company. And then lastly, the thing that they're looking for when they ask you a question about why did you apply for this job, think about his answer. Oh, I was looking through a number of job descriptions, and this one sounded kind of good. That sounds like somebody who maybe will take the job if you hire them, but if they find something else that's a little more interesting, maybe they're going to skip to that. So you want to make sure that you let the employer know with your answers that you're looking for a place to have a career. You aren't looking at this as just the next stop in hiring or just a way to make money. So now our next slide reminds us of, this is one we've looked at before, thinking about what are our soft skills and what are our hard skills. And remember that the hard skills are the ones that through either training, education, or just kind of hands-on experience that you've been taught or you have learned how to do these things. More and more employers are looking for people who they feel are just ready to go, which means that they're looking for people who, if it's a skill that has a certification, like a lot of IT positions, anything computer related, there are so many certificates out there. If you are interested in healthcare, you know, many students start out getting a CNA or a CMA, and then add phlebotomy, and all those certificates move you up in and allow you to do other things within the healthcare field. Licenses, there are many professions, especially in the state of Illinois, that require licenses. You know, a hairdresser has to have a license, a teacher has to have a license. You know, I can't think of enough examples right now, but you would be surprised at all of the people, all of the positions that require a license. So those are the areas that represent hard skills. The soft skills are the things that are more what kind of person you are and how you like to work. So, and those are a little harder to convey. So you need to kind of figure that out when you are reading their job description. You're going to research the company to see what kind of environment you'll be working in so that you can explain or give examples of all of the different soft skills, and the top 10 are listed here on this slide. Communication is always huge, and I'm kind of surprised problem solving isn't next, but problem solving is a big one. Teamwork, there's almost no job anymore that you do alone. So take a look at the hard skills, the soft skills, when you are when you're preparing for the job interview. Okay, so we've talked many times about how you put your skills in your resume. So the resume introduction is like your branding statement. And so you want to emphasize that's a better place in your branding statement. Make sure that you put some soft skills in there, but try to match them to whatever the job description says. So if they're looking for motivated people or outgoing people, make sure that you somehow get that into your branding statement, which means that you're going to be adjusting that branding statement on your resume for probably every job you apply for, because every company, even for the same position, might be looking for something different. I don't remember for sure if she said this in this part about in the video that we watched, when you're reading the job description, when they say things like must have good attendance, must work well with others, must like working outside, those give you hints. All those must have, those give you hints of what they think is important and probably the areas that they've had trouble with employees in before. So that's tends to stick out in their mind what they want to avoid in the future. You're going to match in the experience section all of those skills that match in the job description, what they're looking for in any of your employment or volunteer work, or even things that you do within your family. And then the skill section, depending on what the position that you're looking for. And again, those are going to be those keywords that we talk about that are in the job description that might be specific to whichever job you're applying for. So that's how you would enter skills in your resume. So how do we prepare? We've got our resume, we applied for a job, and we are getting ready. We got an interview. So our resume was successful, our application was successful, they're interested in us. So let's go through how do we prepare? We start with that job description. So you want to know what the employer's concerned about. You're going to be able to tell by the first few things when they describe the job. Those are going to be the highest priority. The second one with what kind of person, that's when I was talking about the must have good attendance, must like working outside, must work well with others. That's more the type of person that you are. By looking at each of the requirements of the job, you can almost predict what questions they're going to ask, because let's say they require customer service. So a very easy way to ask about that is, tell me about a time when you provided customer service in a difficult situation. So they're addressing the idea that they need customer service. It's important, but they're also asking you, what do you do in difficult situations? How do you respond in difficult situations? So for every one of those qualifications, you can anticipate how they might ask you a question about it. And if you, with each of those questions or each of the qualifications, think about what's a positive way. They might just ask you, tell me about a time that, or have you had experience working with children? That's an opportunity for you to just give positive examples, but they could also spin it and ask the question, were there any times that it was difficult to work with children, and how did you handle it? Tell us about a time where a child disrupted the class, or somebody in your area where you worked played a radio really loudly and it was disrupting others. How did you handle that? So things like, think of a positive and a negative for every qualification that they're asking for, every job description point, and then you will be more than prepared in anticipating what they might ask you. And you also want to look at, can you get any clues from the job description of kind of the picture of what that person they want to hire might look like? So are they going to be somebody who says, I'm a self-starter? So if anything in the job description gives you, they talk about motivation, or they talk about being able to work independently. Those are all things that tell you what they want that person to be able to do in order to fit well with them. And I really like the bottom text box there where it says, the more prepared you are, the more you're relaxed you'll be, and it's the better chance that you will successfully complete the interview. So moving on, I brought back another slide that we talked about before. Since we're talking about preparing for that interview and doing a good job, these are some that are a little bit awkward. We already talked about the tell me about yourself, and she did a great job in the video in what is it that employers are looking for. They want you to be a good fit, and they want you to have the skills, and they want you to be somebody who's going to stay for a while. So we're going to, so we do the tell me about yourself. That's our branding statement. We want to make sure that we are preparing ourselves to tell what our skills are and why we are a good fit for that job. Many times they ask for why you left a previous job. We never want to say that we left a previous job because of something bad about the company, bad about your supervisor. The best way to answer that is you're looking for more opportunities, or you feel like it's time for a change and you want a new challenge. But you will never, it does not, you are not being impressive if you criticize or complain about your last company or your last supervisor. Okay, and then the range of salary, we've talked about this, that we want to make sure that we don't say what we want, because then you've put a price on what you'll work for, what you want to accept. So a good way to turn this around is, first of all, you want to go to, they list right here, salary.com. You can put in the job title, you can put in the location, and you'll get a range like right down into the suburb you live in, of what jobs with that title pay in your area. Very often the job description will have a range, but the way that you want to handle this if they ask you that is for you to kind of turn it around and say, well, where do you see this position fitting in a salary scale? That's kind of puts it back on them for them to tell you where they see it fitting. And then when they ask about goals in the future, you want, first of all, you want to, many times they'll say, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? So you don't want to say you see yourself at a different company, or, you know, retiring or quitting, winning the lottery and not working anymore. What you want to say is thinking about the future. If you're familiar with the job, or if you're not familiar with the job, you can say that in 5 years, you hope to see yourself taking on more responsibility in the position that you're in, or moving up to another position. Okay, so at this point, we are ending our PowerPoint presentation by with the advisors. So I always put the contact information in here as my last slide of the PowerPoint presentation, because I give everyone the PowerPoint presentation in this way. You'll always know that you have this contact information in here. So this is contact for Tom and Marlena, who are our academic transition advisors. And I'm Valerie Kazubel, the career advisor. So if you have a career related question, you would come to me. If you're thinking about transitioning either to some kind of training, going on into another academic setting, either in a certificate program or a degree program, they can help you with all of those questions. And then I do want to go back up, and I hope I don't make anybody dizzy by doing this. I want to again mention Jody Sue Kelly from Signet Associates is not in this area. She did a webinar that I attended on having success in job interviewing. So I just want to acknowledge her again. And I also want to recommend that here's the link to the video down here. Oh, I'm not sharing the screen, am I? Oh, I am, okay. So there's a link to the video at the bottom. I only showed about 10 to 15 minutes of it, but I really recommend that if you're preparing to interview for a job, that you watch this video. It really ties together the preparing for an interview, and also it shows examples of mock interviews where people are doing it in a very casual, not very effective way. And then how does it look right afterwards when they make changes and look more professional so that they'll probably get the job. Okay, so again, going back to our last slide, I hope. So there's our advisors again. Here we all are with our contact information. I am going to stop sharing now. I will send out the PowerPoint tonight. I am recording this so that I will send the video as well. So if that usually takes me a little bit longer because I usually have technical difficulties getting it together. But so I want to thank you for stopping by, and see you next time.